We are live, people. We are live. My name is Alam, and this is another In Motion Football live stream coming to you on Friday to talk about the upcoming games this week on Sunday and Monday. We have a couple matchups that are really interesting, so I can't wait to get into it. Shout out to everybody that's watching this live right now and to anybody that might be watching this on the replay. Really appreciate your viewership. If you enjoy the content, make sure you support it. Likes and subscriptions are a big part of how videos get pushed on YouTube and how channels get bigger. So if you enjoy the content, make sure you show your support. I'm going to get right into it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go game by game, give my thoughts on the games, and then give you guys some predictions. So we're going to get into that. We're going to keep track of these predictions throughout the season. I've never actually really kept track of predictions like this, so I do look forward to seeing how I do. I'll get my screen shared right now, and we'll get right into the business. We'll do it like this. All right, cool. So first game we'll look into Panthers at Falcons. Falcons favored by 3.5. I guess where I'll start here is how do I think this game is going to go when Atlanta has the ball? So Atlanta's offense versus Carolina's defense. I think that phase of the game will be pretty competitive because I think Atlanta's offense is still coming together, and I think Carolina's defense is still coming together. So with Atlanta's offense, obviously Ritter, year two. We're going to see what his game looks like this year. Bijan, new player to the backfield. They have two running backs in Bijan and Algier. They have a joker in Cordero Patterson, so a player that could look like a receiver on certain plays, a running back on other plays. You don't know where he'll line up and how he'll line up. Obviously, a very versatile weapon. You have two tight ends because you have Kyle Pitts, of course, who's extremely versatile between playing as a tight end or a receiver. And then you have Jonnu Smith, who his career hasn't really looked all too good since he signed for the Patriots, but he was obviously there in Tennessee with Arthur Smith. So the familiarity with the scheme, you could maybe see him be more important in that offense than you would think. So with all those things said, a lot of moving parts. Obviously, I didn't even mention Drake London, who's there, but he's still kind of figuring his career out and his place in the offense. So a lot of interesting stuff there. It's an offense that's, like I said, is still coming together, but it'll be going up against a defense that similarly has a lot of decent pieces. How we don't know is going to look because in Carolina's case it's a new defensive coordinator, Edro Evero. Obviously a defensive coordinator with a very good resume, so somebody who I do expect good things from, but it's a completely new personnel in terms of how they fit into the defense. So the secondary I think is very talented, a lot of good pieces. The linebackers I'm not so sure about, but obviously Justin Houston and Brian Burns on the edge. Brian Burns I think was at practice, so presumably he's going to be with the team. You got Derek Brown up front. Like I said, there's pieces. They did have some good games last year, but we're going to have to see how things look. That being said, you got pieces on both sides. I think that this part of the game will be competitive, and both units will have their wins in terms of how drives fare. Looking at the other side of the ball, though, I think Atlanta's defense is going to get the better of Carolina's offense. That's ultimately why I'm taking Atlanta, and I'm taking the points as well. So, in that case, how I look at it is Carolina is missing Chark. They have Adam Thielen, but he's banged up. I think Terrace Marshall's banged up as well. So their weapons aren't right. Their offensive line has looked really bad in the offseason. Bryce Young's a rookie. And Frank Reich, I believe, is 0-4-1 in week ones. So hasn't won a week one as a head coach. So all these things come together, and I think that offense will not fare well. And if you look at Atlanta's defense, I feel better about them because they have pieces from New Orleans that are going to be obviously familiar with the defensive coordinator who's from New Orleans. You have Jesse Bates. You have there's another addition. Oh yeah, there's Bud Dupree and Calais Campbell. I think it's Bud Dupree. Yeah, but they got an edge rusher. They got Calais Campbell. They had David Onyemata from New Orleans, Caden Ellis. I think it's a little bit of a squad. I don't know exactly how good their defense is, but I'm pretty confident it won't be bad. So Yeah, that unit I think is going to get better of better than they're going to get the better of Carolina's offense, and that is why I'm picking them to win. So I got Atlanta taking this one, getting off to a 1-0 start in this big season for Desmond Ritter, and I got Bryce Young starting out his career with an L, and we'll see how week 2 looks for them. So that's that game. Bengals Browns is the next game. So this is an interesting one because it's the Battle of Ohio. Um, it's obviously a division rivalry that's been very one-sided as of late. I believe the Bengals are 1-5 against the Browns in the last 6 matchups. What else are there? I'm just quickly reading the betting nuggets there. Okay, there's nothing there that concerns me for this preview. But yeah, divisional matchup where the Browns have the advantage, and then the other thing to keep in mind is that the Bengals have started slow in each of the last 2 seasons. So you put all those things together, and I'm picking the Browns just because of those trends mainly. Obviously, I have the Bengals as the better team. I have them faring better as the season goes on. I have them finishing higher than the Browns in the division. But week 1, something's gotta happen that's unpredictable, and I'm going with the Browns beating the Bengals. So as for how this game is gonna go, let's look at what happens when the Bengals step foot on the field with the ball. So Joe Burrow, he's playing, he's healthy, but he just had a calf injury. So while obviously he's cleared to be on a football field, I don't think he's going to be 100% right. Again, I don't think he started the season that good last year either. And he was, I think he was banged up last year too for another reason. But yeah, just that calf injuries are not good injuries to have. And they're injuries that tend to they can get aggravated, they can get worse. So I don't feel great about the fact that he's starting the year out like that. I think obviously because I have him faring well, I do think he'll figure it out as the season goes on. But when they have the ball from against Cleveland's defense, you have to look at it like Myles Garrett can have a profound impact on any football game because that's just the kind of player he is. So if the Bengals struggle, it could be because they have a brand new offensive tackle. There might not be cohesion amongst the offensive line. I believe Jonah Williams is playing at the right tackle. Was he a full-time starter last year? Jonah Williams was hurt one of the years, but I do think that there's a second offensive lineman that they're integrating. So um, the window is open for Myles Garrett to have a very impactful game. Jamar Chase is an amazing player. So is T. Higgins. They have Denzel Ward, though. They have Juan Thornhill. They have some pieces in the secondary. Um, yeah, it's not that I think that all of a sudden Cleveland's just going to be a better team than Cincinnati, but what I'm pointing out is that they do have pieces that, if they show up and have a great game, can have a pretty big impact on the game in terms of that unit, the Browns defense faring well against the Bengals offense. And then on the other side of things, Cincinnati is integrating 2 new safeties to their defense. The rest of their defense is about as they were last year, but they're integrating 2 new safeties. So if your 2 safeties, let's say, don't play the best because they are getting used to the defense and they start making mistakes, that opens things up for big plays. So let's say they make mistakes. Let's say the Browns make big plays and Chubb is the other side of the offense in terms of he's punishing you at the line of scrimmage. And then there's big plays down the field that stretches open your defense. So yeah, if Cleveland is going to get this upset, it'll be along the lines of their star players on defense show up and have an unreal day, and offensively, Chubb dominates, and the safeties on the Bengals they need a bit of an adjustment period to get used to things. So that would be how it happens. Like I said, people, Cincinnati's the better team; they'll have the better year. Some upsets got to happen though. So if I had to call one, it would be this one, where you got the Bengals with banged up Burrow, who tend to start slow anyways, against a matchup that beats them in a contested divisional game, the Battle of Ohio. So I'm going to go with Cleveland here, people. Indianapolis Colts against Jacksonville Jaguars, another divisional matchup. You got a tale of 2 quarterbacks here. You have one just starting their career and hopefully trying to get some footing. just in the NFL as the year starts. And then you have Trevor Lawrence, who has been there and done that, and is now trying to take that next step to superstardom. So it's interesting. I think I still have the Jaguars here in this, and mind you, I'm picking by the point spread. So I took Atlanta with the 3.5. I'm taking the Browns here. I'm taking them to win outright, but obviously, like the Bengals are favorites by 2, so I still get it if the Bengals win by 1. And then in this one, the Jags are favorites by 5, and I'll take that. I'll take them winning by 5. How do I think this game fares when the two units have the ball? Now, I think Indianapolis's offense, obviously, they don't have Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if they will get Jonathan Taylor at any point, but Kenyon Drake is no. Zach Moss is questionable. So as of now, Kenyon Drake and Deion Jackson are the running backs that we know they'll have. I think they're not going to fare too well against Jacksonville's defense. I don't think Jacksonville's defense is particularly amazing. But obviously, from Indy's standpoint, they have a quarterback that's a rookie that's making their first start. They don't really have a running back that you can rely on. Their offensive line did not perform well last year. And their receivers are, I don't even think their receivers are that bad, but when everything else is unsettled, that puts those receivers in a pretty difficult position, and they may not be able to impact the game the way they can. Obviously, Jacksonville has a very athletic front seven. They have Josh Allen. They have very athletic linebackers. They have Trayvon Walker as the other edge rusher. So they could be the two edge rushers could be key components in keeping Anthony Richardson uncomfortable. So from that standpoint, I don't expect the Colts offense to succeed against the Jaguars defense. And then when the Jaguars are on the field with the football, boy, that young Colts secondary, that young, inexperienced, unproven Colts secondary going up against Ridley and Kirk, it's cold. Like it's going to be a tough matchup for the Colts there. I think the Jags' weapons are going to have a lot of joy against the secondary. I think the Colts have some respectable pieces in their front seven, but I do think that the way the Jaguars can get ETN running on like outside zone kind of things and stretches, I think that'll be pretty effective. So all things considered, I think the Jaguars offense will get the better of the Colts defense, and I think the Jaguars defense will get the better of the Colts offense. So I think that despite the fact that this is a divisional game and it's week 1 and anything can happen, I got the Jaguars by 5 here. Next game, Tampa and Minnesota. Okay, so if you have watched my divisional previews, you know that I don't think very highly of Tampa Bay as in terms of their season as a whole. I do think that the wheels are gonna fall off and they're gonna lose a lot of football games. But what I will say is, I think the players they have playing right now, on defense in particular, but also some pieces offensively, you're gonna get their best in the beginning of the year. They're not going to show up, I don't think, week 8, 9, 10, and onwards. But early in the year, while the wheels are still on, I think that you'll probably get a couple good games. I don't think my thing with Tampa is that they might not win a game in their last 10 games. But they're gonna probably win a couple before that. So I actually am taking Tampa Bay here. I'm gonna pick them to win this game outright. Um, I am. I don't feel great about that, but I do feel great about the Tampa plus 5.5, meaning that as long as they don't lose by 6 or more, I get the pick right. So I still like that. But yeah, my main reason is like, again, when we look at it like Vikings offense versus Tampa defense, I think Tampa Bay has the front 7 to take away Minnesota's running game. I think I like Minnesota's scheme when it comes to the running game. I don't even dislike Madison as a player. I think he's good, but I don't think that their running game is elite by any means. I think they're of a level that I think Tampa Bay could shut down. So I think that might force Kirk Cousins to throw the ball. And that's the thing. I don't think Tampa Bay is strong in the slot defensively in their secondary, but I think the rest of their pieces are decent. So again, I could see the Tampa defense coping with the Vikings offense and that being a competitive back and forth, and just generally either being even or even swinging in Tampa Bay's favor. So if we look at the other side now, when Tampa Bay has the ball, my thing about the Vikings defense is I don't like their personnel at all. I don't think they have the guys, but they have the coach. Brian Flores is an amazing defensive coordinator. So, my take on the Vikings defense is they'll get better as the season goes on, as certain young players develop, as the coach gets more time with the players, as the players get better at understanding the scheme. As all these things happen, I think the Vikings defense will get better. So I think the reason I'm picking Tampa Bay here is more just about the timing of this matchup. I think Minnesota would win this matchup in any week but week 1 or week 2. Week 1 or week 2 is the key thing here. Minnesota's defense has the potential to be like at its worst right now at the beginning of the year. And again, I don't particularly like Tampa Bay's offense. I don't particularly like Baker Mayfield, but Mike Evans and Godwin could make some plays early. That's 100% on the table. That could definitely happen. So, yeah, if we give the Bucks defense credit and say they could hang with the Vikings offense, and then Godwin and Evans make some plays, and Rashad White is just serviceable. Yeah, Tampa Bay could get the sneaky win again. Like upsets will do happen. I have to call some upsets if I want to give myself a chance at getting all the picks right. So the Browns was a big upset. I think this is my other big upset. I don't really know if I get too edgy with any of these other picks, but yeah, give me Tampa Bay in a very surprising win to start the year. And one of the few wins they get this year. So moving on to the next game, Titans Saints. Saints favorites by 3. So really, what that means is that Vegas thinks these teams are even. I think 3 points is the standard thing for home field advantage. So the Saints being favorites by 3 at home, they're basically saying the football teams are even. The Saints are just at home. So my thoughts on this matchup are as such. So I think when Tennessee has the ball, that matchup will be like above average to good versus above average to good, because that's how I feel about those units. I think the Saints unit is solid. I think they lost some pieces in free agency, not huge pieces, but some pieces. Um, Obviously, I think their draft pick, Brian Brucey could help, but yeah, some of their best players on defense are aging, Demario Davis and Cam Jordan. So I think that generally, like, I feel good about that offense. Oh, sorry, that defense. But like, there could be some scope for regression. And then with the Titans' offense, like again, there's good pieces in Henry and Nuke, but like they're primed for regression as well. Tannehill, I don't particularly think the world of. So I think that matchup could go either way, depending on just who's better on the day. But I think very much Titans' offense versus Saints' defense could be a bit of a flush, right? There's established parts of each unit, and then there's less established parts. There's some aging players that could start to get worse now in both of the pools of established players in each unit. That part could be pretty equal. And then when the Saints have the ball against the Titans defense, this is probably where I think the Saints have the advantage, because I think the Saints have more good than the Titans defense does. The Titans defense is pretty hit or miss. Like uh, Jeffrey Simmons, I like. Obviously, Byard, I like. Um, that might be it. That might be it. Obviously, they signed Arden Key, who is a player that's looking to prove it. Let me quickly look at the Titans depth chart to make sure I'm not missing anybody and see if there's any injuries. Yeah, so like again, Simmons, I like. Danico Autry, he's cool, he's good. Harold Landry's good. Fulton is cool. Yeah, see, so like there's some good pieces on that defense, but I think the Saints offense has more good pieces going for them. So Jamal Williams and Kendre Miller should be able to be functional as runners. The offensive line, again, it was a bad run blocking line last year, but I don't think it'll be a bad run blocking line this year, because I think Carr will force teams to respect the passing threat a little bit more. So again, Carr should be able to get something out of those tight ends and Chris Olave and Michael Thomas, and then the running game should be respectable. Like, I don't think that there's parts of that offense that are guaranteed to falter the way I think that like parts of the Titans defense will. Like, aside from the 5 players that I mentioned that I liked, there's a lot there that could fall apart for the Titans defense. And of course, going to be a well-coached unit from Mike Vrabel. So, I mean, there's a reason that Vegas has these two teams as a flush. But I think if there is an edge, the edge is the Saints offense versus the Titans defense, because there's a bit of a personnel thing. Players like Arden Key, Aziz Al Shair, McCreary, even, who did have a solid year last year, like these are players that still have to prove themselves and establish themselves. There's less players on the Saints offense that I think have to prove themselves. Michael Thomas does a bit, but that's your second receiver in an offense that has a very good wide receiver one in Olave, in my opinion, and should have a functional running game and functional tight ends. It's not as high stakes of a thing as your second pass rusher who's a starter, and then your starting middle linebacker, and then one of your starting corners. That's a lot more high leverage in the way of, like, if that doesn't work out for you, it's much worse. So that's that. That's how I look at that matchup. I'm gonna take this. The thing is, 3 points might be a lot. I'm so conflicted here. I'll take the Saints. I'll give them, the home team here. I'll give the game to them. But yeah, I'm not sure about that one at all. So we got Niners, Steelers. This one is fascinating. When the Niners have the ball, what I'll be watching for is how does the Niners offensive line fare with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, both of which are guys that get a high number of sacks. I don't think that the Niners have two good tackles. I think they have one. So I think one of the Steelers pass rushers should have a very favorable matchup on every single passing down. And then the other thing I'm looking for is how does the Steelers secondary fare? Because I don't actually like the Steelers secondary that much at all. I think that it's a weak unit. Obviously, the Niners have very good weapons. So how does that unit hold up? It's interesting because I think both the units here, they have their own thing going for them. Like the Steelers unit has the pass rusher against the right tackle, and the Niners have their weapons against that secondary. There's a distinct advantage for both sides, which is why I think that, like, the matchup could go either way. There's a chance the Steelers defense can win this matchup if one of their pass rushers dominates. There's a chance the Niners win this matchup if their weapons dominate. It's interesting. It could go either way. I would probably still I want to give the advantage to the Niners and just assume that they'll get the better of the Steelers defense, but it's the Steelers at home. It's Mike Tomlin. It's a home opener, which is always a raucous environment. So that matchup is kind of close. It's kind of close, I think, but we'll see. I think I still give the edge to the Niners. And then when the Niners are playing defensively against the Steelers offense, the key things to watch for here, in my opinion, particularly, are how the Steelers' interior line deals with Javon Hargrave, which is a player that generates a lot of pass rush from the interior. I don't think the Steelers' interior line is all that good on paper. So I want to see how they match up against Hargrave. I also want to see how do the Steelers basically how do they approach their game offensively, because I think they could do two distinctly different things. I think they could put out Deontay Johnson, Pickens, Freiermuth, or Donnell Washington, either one of their tight ends, and actually have like an effective offense down the field in the passing game, assuming Pickett does his job, because the weapons facilitate like the offense. Or they could go two tight ends and just run the shit out of the ball. I actually really like their backup running back. So I think Najee is fine. He's cool. He's good. But the backup also will give them the flexibility to have two backs going to keep both of the backs fresh. And with two good tight ends like they have, especially Darnell Washington, who's like an elite blocker, to have that as a possibility, I think that's fascinating, because Javon Hargrave is a very weak run defender. I know this as an Eagles fan. So while I don't think the Niners interior defensive linemen were all that good last year, I don't think that was the strength of their defense, which is why they went out and paid Hargrave. He did not make the interior of their defensive line better, right? The linebackers in that defense are elite. They're going to probably clean up any mess created by the defensive tackles. But something I want people to know is, nobody talks about this, but when the Eagles played the Niners last year in the championship game, the way the game went, it dictated that the Eagles should run the football. So the game script, for the most part, was once the quarterbacks went down for San Francisco and the Eagles had a bit of a lead, just run the ball. And we ran the ball fairly effectively while the Niners knew we were going to run the ball, while we knew we were going to run the ball, while Hertz honestly wasn't doing all that well throwing the ball. Everybody in that stadium knew the Eagles were going to run the ball, and the Niners still didn't really stop it. So I actually, Hargrave's not going to make that better. Greenlaw and Warner were on the field for that happening. In my opinion, a big part of the reason the Eagles could run the ball is because of the running threat that Jalen Hurts is, and the fact that he's committing a defender to him in the box every time he hands the ball off, because you have to respect the fact that he could tuck it and run. So I look at it like this. Can the Steelers establish Pickett as a running threat, put two tight ends on the field, keep both their running backs fresh, and run the shit out of the ball? Because if they do, they have a chance to fare pretty well against this Niners defense. And a part of what the reason I say that is because they have a defensive coordinator in his first game. So again, this will be the sloppiest they are in terms of cohesion between the players and the defensive coordinator. So if there is an opportunity to catch the Niners defense slipping, it's this. And for the Steelers to do it, it would be that. Now, my concern is I don't know if the Steelers are ready to play that way with Pickett, because I think sometimes in these situations, organizations want to show off like their quarterback. Like they may not want to hand the ball off 30 times and have Pickett run a little bit more, which I think is the most effective tactical way to approach this game, as opposed to making Pickett drop back, throw the ball 30 times, and expose him to Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave as pass rushers. That's, I think, a bad thing to do. But that's showing off, your young quarterback that you have a lot of stocks in. I think that would be stupid. It's possible that they do it, though. If I was them, I'm establishing Pickett as a runner. I'm running the shit out of the ball. Two tight ends on the field. Darnell Washington is basically a sixth offensive lineman. I'm forcing Javon Hargrave to run defend. I'm forcing Greenlaw and Fred Warner to constantly have to work. That's the way I think the Steelers should approach this game. If so, there is a window for them to have a good day offensively. But ultimately, I think it's a very specific thing. It's a very specific timeline and a very specific set of circumstances. I don't know if it'll actually happen. I'll take the Niners here. It's a very narrow spread, 2.5. So I'll take the Niners by 2.5. But I just want everyone to know, and for the people that just joined the stream, because I saw a couple people join, if you're curious about what I just said, you can go back maybe about 3-4 minutes. But yeah, there is a window for Pittsburgh, a very small window, if they get things right and they have the right strategy, to have a good day against the Niners defense. We'll see if it happens. But that's that game. We're going to move to the next, Cardinals Commanders. Oh, this game's going to suck. People, you have no business watching this football game at all. Cardinals Commanders. You're gonna see a team that has a new owner, that is a very grateful fan base right now, that doesn't have to deal with Dan Snyder, up against a team that is trying to lose football games this year. This game is going to be a wash, because the Commanders are actually, this thing that people don't know, they're actually a good football team. They just have had very bad quarterback play for a good 3 to 4 years now. Sam Howell, who knows? I don't have a take on Sam Howell, because I haven't seen him that much, and I didn't really watch him in college or scout him. But look, if he's respectable, they should blow the Cardinals out, because the Cardinals are not respectable. They are trying to lose football games. They are starting Josh Dobbs, who we saw fail miserably in Tennessee in the snaps he had last year. He's there because he has experience with Drew Petzing, who is their young offensive coordinator, first-time play caller, who's in Cleveland with Josh Dobbs. I don't think Josh Dobbs will actually be able to use Arizona's weapons, because Rondale Moore and Marquise Brown, that's even Trey McBride, that's respectable. But I don't think Josh Dobbs has the arm to actually make use of them. Then if you look at their running game, is James Conner going to be able to run into a great defensive line to carry an offense? No. So I got the Washington defense smoking the Cardinals offense. And I have the same thing happening on the other side of the ball. When Washington has the ball, I think they'll be able to run the ball effectively against the Cardinals front seven. I literally only respect Budda Baker on that defense as a established talent. There's some decent pieces, but that's the guy. Yeah, I think they'll be able to throw the ball because they have weapons. They have McLaurin. They have Jahan Dotson. They have a respectable 1, 2, 3. Curtis Samuel's like a decent number three. So yeah, I think the Commanders are going to wash this team. I don't want to spend any more time talking about this game. Give me the Commanders by 7 all day. What a terrible matchup. Another one. This one's, I think, the most lopsided spread. Ravens by 9.5. I have the Ravens winning this game. So Houston is entering this game with a very banged up offensive line. The Ravens are entering this game with a very banged up secondary. I only think one of those will matter. I don't think Houston's offense is built to go against this Ravens defense because I don't think they have the receivers or the quarterbacks to get that done. The receivers, because there's an issue of quality, and then the quarterback, there's an issue of the fact that he's a rookie playing in his first game. So is he going to be able to take advantage of a Ravens defense without their best players in the secondary, but still against a respectable front seven? Probably not. And then if the passing game doesn't get going, are they going to be able to run against that front seven with Roquan in them? Probably not, especially with a backup offensive line. Definitely not. So I think the Texans offense is going to struggle against the Ravens defense. When the Ravens have the ball, I think they're going to have a good day against Houston secondary. I think Jimmy Ward isn't playing, so that's obviously a veteran player who has experience in DeMeco's Ryan scheme. That's not a good player to not have. If you watched our divisional preview of the AFC South, when we looked at Houston's defense, they have a piece here and there, but the unit is weak. So Baltimore, even if they don't have Mark Andrews, I think they should probably wash Houston. So yeah, 9.5 is that for a reason. The Ravens have a history of dunking on people in the opening day. So I definitely have the Ravens winning this. I'll take the 9.5. Yeah, it should be one of those week one games from the Ravens where they just run up the scoreboard a bit. Packers, Bears. So this is an interesting one. I'm actually really fascinated by this line because it says the Bears are favorites by 1 at home. If you remember what I said earlier, the home field standard swing in the odds is 3. So that means Vegas actually thinks the Packers are a better team than the Bears. And I disagree. So I think this is fascinating. I'm definitely taking the Bears. Like I said, if we look at the game when the Packers have the ball, right? Christian Watson is out. Romeo Doubs isn't healthy. As is, I've talked about how young their weapons are. If they have to dead ass play rookies against the secondary, which I think is the strength of the Bears defense, the linebackers are a strength too, but the secondary is a more impactful position than the linebacker position. So I'm rolling with the fact that will stifle the Packers passing game. Obviously, it's Jordan Love's basically debut, even though he's not a young quarterback. It's his debut. I don't think he'll have the passing targets that'll make the passing game functional. So now the question becomes, how much can Green Bay run the ball, right? The Bears have a weak offensive line. They have a very young offensive line. Like even the talent that they do have is very young. So essentially, can the Packers run the ball enough to win the game is the main question. While the defensive line isn't a strength, like I said, the linebackers are. Tremaine Edmonds, obviously, I think he's going to be their all-around linebacker. TJ Edwards, by nature, is like very good against the run, not so great against the pass. But again, in a situation where the pass isn't a big deal, I think those two linebackers will be effective enough for the running game from Green Bay to not be good enough to carry an offense. So I expect Green Bay to maybe have their moments, but I don't expect them to do enough to win this game offensively. And then you look at the flip side of things, I think what we saw last year before the Bears tried to actively start losing games is that Justin Fields was running enough to honestly to win games. Unfortunately for him, at some point, they pulled the plug on competence in the Bears last year. But I think going up against the Packers defense, which is like definitely a respectable unit, they've gotten the job done for a couple of years now with this regime. Like I said, you add DJ Moore to this offense, you add the running threat that Justin Fields is. The Packers have to respect a lot of the football field, right? DJ Moore is going to make you cover properly, especially now that Claypool is a number 2, Mooney is a number 3. you're going to have to respect the Bears down the field, provided that Justin Fields makes the throws. And I know a lot of people are very skeptical about Justin Fields' ability to throw. I do think he can make easy throws, and I do think the receivers will give him the ability to do so. So if that happens, and now he's running around as well, so now you're kind of stretched the other way, trying to watch him at the line of scrimmage. I think the Packers might have their hands full. Now, do I expect the Bears to give them like 35? Maybe not, but as I said, I think the Bears have a better chance of having success against the Packers defense than the Packers offense does against the Bears defense. And I think a big part of that is also the fact that it's week one and the fact that the Packers have a lot of change, but then also a lot of youth. The Packers have significant change and significant youth. So it's tough. Week one, I got the Bears here. They're only favorites by one, so I'm taking that easy. That's cash money for me, I think. So that's where I'm going with this. So now we're on to Raiders Broncos. It's a tough one for me. Obviously, again, Broncos by 3.5. So that means that Vegas basically has these teams even, more or less. As the home team is only a 3.5 point favorite. So here's the thing. I think the Broncos defense is going to be what it is. I think it's going to be very good. The way it was very good last year, I think they're going to carry over the same thing. I think as a whole, they're a better unit than the Raiders offense. However, the thing to keep in mind with the Raiders offense is they have the splash players. They have two stars in Jacobs and Devontae Adams. So it could be one of those things where I think how they could fare offensively is, for the most part, they're getting shut down, but then they get the splash moments from Devontae and Josh Jacobs. And if you get enough from them and they are capable of providing that, that could sustain you offensively, especially against a team that probably not going to do much offensively themselves. So when you look at Denver with the ball, I don't think a whole lot of the shout out my guy Leon. What's going on, Leon? Leon, what matchups are you looking forward to this week? I'm previewing every single game right now, so I may have got through the matchup you're looking for, but I probably have more matchups. There's probably I think there's like half the matchups left, so I might have the matchup you're looking for upcoming. But yeah, I don't think the world of the Raiders defense. Obviously, I like Max Crosby a lot. I like Marcus Peters still, but I don't think the world of that unit. But I expect the Broncos offense to be trash because I think Russell Wilson is not it. I think they invested a lot on the offensive line, but I'm not sure that's actually going to pay off. I don't necessarily love the guys that they paid. Ben Powers is cool, but McGlinchey is not it. Their running back is not healthy. Their backup is Samaje Perine, who I don't like at all. Jerry Jeudy's hamstring is not right. Cortland Sutton, I think, has probably shown thus far in his career that his ceiling isn't as high as people thought it was. So I just don't think that the Broncos offense is going to do a whole lot of everything. The same way I think the Broncos defense versus Raiders offense is like, you got good versus like competent, because I think the Raiders offense will be competent. It's like good versus competent. So similar ballpark. I think the lack of ability on the Broncos offense and just generally like the lack of special players on the Raiders defense is also kind of in the similar ballpark. That's why you see this game called so evenly, in terms of it being 3.5 to the Broncos being 3.5 point favorites. So yeah, it's a tough one to call. My personal opinion, though, I'm going with the star power. I'm going with Jacobs and Devontae Adams. Do something to win this game, more so than anybody on the Broncos offense. So give me Vegas. Hopefully Chandler Jones gets to join their team for their sake, but it sounds like he won't be playing another game for the Raiders. Might be for his own best interest because the Raiders aren't going anywhere this year. Free Adams and free Jacobs because I want the ballers to be on competent teams. But yeah, I think the Raiders probably get a stinky win week one, and the tension builds in Denver between Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, I think. Other than the pass opener, true. Oh yeah, Leon, you're a Patriots fan. So I'm an Eagles fan, by the way. I don't know if you caught that earlier. So here's the thing, right? What I'm going to do on this channel is when I do previews, there's going to be one stream dedicated to everything other than the Eagles game. So literally, like, that's this stream right now. I'm running off every game outside of Eagles Patriots. And then right after this, I'm doing another stream that's exclusively about Eagles Patriots. So I don't know if you got some time tonight and if you're just chilling, but yeah, if you are, just stay tuned because right when I'm done the stream, I'm going right to the Eagles Patriots stream. So we're gonna get that going. But yeah, so I picked the Raiders with this one, especially because Broncos are favorites. The point the Raiders. Like I said, there's a whole separate stream just this is a great matchup because this is Tua versus Herbert. For the people who maybe don't get the significance of that matchup, they were picked back to back, and obviously, it was always acknowledged that both teams were going to end up with one of the two quarterbacks, right? Ultimately, the Dolphins picked first. They picked Tua, left Herbert for the Chargers, and that was that. But yeah, they played last year. I believe Tua struggled, and the Chargers got the W. It's an interesting matchup again. Chargers are favorites by 3 at home, which means that Vegas thinks that these teams are even because the home field advantage is factored as 3 points for that side. So if a home team is favored by 3, Vegas thinks the teams are even. So um, because the Chargers don't really have a home crowd like that, it's a very even game. Um, as I've been doing with these previews, I look at, okay, when one team has the ball, their offense versus the other team's defense, what's that going to look like? So when the Chargers have the ball and they go up against the Dolphins defense, obviously the Dolphins defense, they don't have Jalen Ramsey, but they have Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio, one of the better defensive coordinators in football. He's now going to be working with personnel that I think is still good, right? Obviously, with losing Ramsey hurts, um, but it's still a lot of good players on that defense. You got Javon Holland, you got Jalen Phillips, you got Bradley Chubb, you got Christian Wilkins, you got Jerome Baker, you got Xavier Howard, who I think has fallen off a bit, but still good. You have pieces, and you're giving pieces to a very good defensive coordinator. And specifically, for people who aren't overly familiar with Fangio's scheme, his scheme is very much about taking away the big plays, keeping things underneath, and forcing mistakes. So if you look at how that matches up against the Chargers offense this year, I believe, is attempting to take risks, and it's attempting to go for more big plays, and it's attempting to be less like last year where they were very conservative and very safe, a lot of short passes for Herbert. So it's interesting that Miami's defensive strength should be going right up against what, like, it should be stopping exactly what the Chargers are trying to do. Now, for the Chargers, like, for the sake of the Chargers, they have healthy receivers right now that they didn't have last year at any point, that they may not have this upcoming season. Because again, that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, they stay getting injured. So, like, from their standpoint, they got to make the most out of the time that they have with 3 healthy receivers. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see if Herbert forces the ball down the field the way Kellen Moore would probably want him to do against a defense that's specifically trying to take that away, because that could result in turnovers. But again, like, yeah, there's personnel on both sides, right? Obviously, you got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnston, and Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert on one side, but then, like, I ran off the names on defense on the other side. So Chargers offense, Dolphins defense, it could go either way, and it's a very contested matchup there. But then when the Dolphins get the ball against the Chargers defense, it's interesting because, again, there's a lot of similar elements. The Chargers defense is healthy for the first time. They were not healthy last year. J.C. Jackson, I don't think, played a snap after signing a big deal. Brandon Staley is a defensive head coach, so those are his guys. That's his unit. He's got a healthy squad for the first time, going up against the Dolphins, who have Tua, who is healthy now, and who knows how long he'll stay healthy. We're getting a matchup with a lot of big players in every unit, because the Chargers defense has J.C. Jackson, Derwin James, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, the linebacker in the middle. I forget who they signed. I think did they get Eric Kendricks? I'm not sure, but they have Deion Henley and Kenneth Murray as well. Names and talents there. And then on the other side, you obviously have Tyreek and Waddle and the fast running backs and Tua. So very even matchup. What I'll lean on is that Tua struggled in the last matchup. Maybe he learned something and he's better this time, or maybe they get the blueprint. They've got the blueprint of how the Chargers are going to play Tua, and then now, because they've had the whole offseason to figure it out, they'll have a better plan. And then the Chargers, they have no blueprint about how they go against Fangio. And I believe the last time Fangio played Kellen Moore, Fangio got the better of him. So I'm going with the Dolphins. Chargers are the favorites by 3. Give me the points for the Dolphins here, and I'm happy with that matchup. Seahawks Rams, Seahawks Rams, another fascinating matchup because I think I don't know why the Seahawks are only favorites by 5. I think that they're a lot better than the Rams, like significantly better than the Rams, especially with Cooper Kupp not playing. Aaron Donald and Matthew Stafford aside, I don't think the Rams have next to no established talent. And I think Seattle, they have ballers all over the place. So this is the thing. I think I'm not going to get too deep into this matchup because I just think when the Rams have the ball, Seattle defense will get the better of them. And then when Seattle has the ball, they're going to get the better of the Rams. So give me the Seahawks by 5 all day. I like this matchup a lot. If I think the Rams way, what would it be? I don't know. Maybe the Rams off. I don't know. No, I have the Seahawks dominating. That's how I see it. So or close to it. So Seahawks all day, every day. Give me the 5 points. I don't understand why the spread is not more. Okay, we're getting to the last 2 games now, people. Cowboys, Giants. Cowboys road favorites by 3.5. Obviously, the Giants, they may not have Darren Waller. Darren Waller I think he's questionable. The Cowboys, I believe, they're missing an off. I think I'm back now. Um, am I back? Yeah, I'm back. Okay, cool. So, yeah, this matchup, I think the Cowboys, I'm going to give it to them. So, again, breaking it down the way I have been, when the Giants have the ball, I think they're going to be trying to get quick passes going to weapons that are getting open early in there, like early in the down. I don't think they're going to be trying to develop a whole lot going down the field. I think that works well for the Cowboys corners because I think Trevon Diggs like excels when he knows the ball is coming out early and he can gamble early on the route. I think he struggles more against offenses that are a bit more patient and try to set him up and then get receivers going down the field. So that plays into the Cowboys corners' hands. I think it mitigates the Cowboys pass rush a little bit, but just generally, I don't think the Giants passing game is going to be all that effective. I believe Dak is like 10-0 against the Giants in his last, something absurd like that. Maybe 8-0, but he's ran off a bunch of wins against the Giants, just like context there. But yeah, I don't think the Giants passing attack will be effective against the defense. I think if there's hope for them, it's the running game. And the reason I say that is because I think Mozzie Smith has been struggling to start his rookie campaign, and he's a big part of the Cowboys' plan to stop the run. And then the Cowboys linebackers. So I think they have one linebacker missing and a safety missing, and then Demarion Overshone, a rookie who I think was actually probably going to help him play a lot at linebacker, also tore his ACL. So the Cowboys, if there's a way to get at them, is the running game. So that could happen. And obviously, Daniel Jones is a threat to keep the ball. But I think the advantages that the Giants have still aren't enough to really warrant picking them to have a lot of success against the Cowboys defense. And then on the other side, I think that if you look at how the Cowboys offense will fare against the Giants defense, we know with Wink Martindale, we're getting a lot of blitzes. I think Dak will be ready. I think with Brandon Cooks, he now has 3 guys he can get to. I think somebody will be open because I don't think the Giants secondary is all that good. They lost Julian Love. They got Deontay Banks. I'm not sure exactly of the other pieces, but I think Adoree Jackson, Deontay Banks, those are the 2 good corners, but I don't think that third corner is good. So somebody on the Cowboys offense in the receiving core should have a good matchup on any given down. The Cowboys offensive line should fare pretty well against the Giants defensive front. because I don't think that they took huge strides in that regard. And while Dexter Lawrence is amazing, he can only do so much on his own. So with a guy like Zach Martin in that part of the field as well, right? The Cowboys also have an elite player there. So I think the Cowboys offense will have a higher degree of success against the Giants defense than the Giants offense will against the Cowboys defense. That's ultimately why I'm picking them, especially just because 3.5 is not a lot. So I'm taking the Cowboys in this one. That's how I see this matchup. And then last but not least for this stream, people, the Monday night game, Buffalo against New York. A very interesting game, a divisional matchup of very high stakes, as these are two competitors for the division on a Monday night game. This is a great primetime game. So if we look at this and what's going on with this matchup, the Jets defense it speaks for itself. It's very good in almost every component of the game. I think they could probably get more sacks. That's probably the part of their defense that doesn't do so good, but they'll cover the shit out of your receivers. They'll stop your run. Yeah, they'll make your quarterback be Superman. Now, they're going up against a quarterback that can do it, but I don't know. I think the Bills' offense is bringing a lot of continuity with them. I think the only real change to their offense is Dalton Kincaid. And again, how much of an impact is a rookie going to make on week one, like the first game of their career? James Cook, there's a lot of hype about him being having a bigger role in the offense, but he has to take a jump as a player for that bigger role to be warranted. So is that going to happen? Um, I think the Jets defense will have more success against the Bills offense than the other way around. I think the Bills offense will have their moments, but I think the Jets will have more moments. So the degree of success that the Jets offense has to have to get this win, I don't think is even that high. But when we look at that, I don't think the Bills defense fared all that well last year. I think that they had a really rough time against the Bengals offense. Now, obviously, they had injuries, but one of their bigger injuries was Von Miller, who I don't think is ready. Like, I don't think he's not going to be a great elite player in game one off that kind of an injury. It's going to take some weeks to get back in the swing of things. So he's still not impacting their defense the way he could. And who else is there? I think some players are back. I think their secondary is healthy. Micah Hyde actually still has a back issue somehow, so that's not encouraging. But he will play, and I think he practiced this week full practice. So there's that. But yeah, like the Bills defense again, a lot of continuity. There's a lot of the same going on with that unit. Oh, Vaughn is on the pup list. See, say less. So he's not even really healthy yet. So that's not going to be a player that impacts the game. They lost Tremaine Edmonds. I don't think they really adequately replaced him. Their defense again had their struggles last year. So when the Jets step up, I think they just have to have a good game to win this game. Nothing special. They're going to step into this game with an offensive line that has a lot of question marks. But fortunately for them, I don't think the Bills' defensive line is particularly dominant. The Jets' offensive line, the way I look at it, I think their interior is good, and I think the tackles are suspect. Aaron Rodgers went as far as to say that the tackles are inconsistent, which I think is quarterback speak for ass. And the Jets coach Saleh was calling them out during one of the Hard Knocks episodes in front of the whole team. So yeah, the offensive line is a question mark, and I think there's a big ripple effect to how they play because I don't think either of the running backs are in a position to be that effective immediately for different reasons. I think Breece Hall, from what I saw, he's getting close to being healthy. But the thing about the kind of injury he had, you heal slower and slower as time passes. So like you could get to 97% in a matter of like 7-8 months, right? But it's going to take another 7-8 months to get from that 97 to 100. Like that's the nature of the recovery of that injury. So a player like Breece Hall, the way he plays and just the position that he plays, I wouldn't be surprised if he picks up small injuries because if your knee is functioning at 97%, other parts of your body are compensating for it, and you are likely to get some type of little small injury. So I think that could happen, and he could maybe not be at his premium level of effectiveness to start the season. Then I think Dalvin Cook, generally, I don't think people paid attention to the fact that he wasn't that good in Minnesota last year. So between those two issues, the offensive line has to be good because if it's not, I don't think either back will overcome a bad offensive line. Similarly, I think Rodgers, at his old age, at his, with his lack of mobility, I don't think he would also be able to overcome a bad offensive line to the level that they would need him to. So this is the thing, people. I think quietly that offensive line is like a make or break thing for that offense. So early on, I think the fact that they're going up against a defensive line that is not all that is very good for them. So I think that they'll be able to get enough from the running backs. I think they'll be able to get enough from Aaron Rodgers. I think Garrett Wilson is more dangerous than any cornerback is on Buffalo right now. I don't think Trey White was all that good when he came back from injury last year. Obviously, you give him some grace and some time to knock the rust off, but I think Garrett Wilson might dominate. So I do think the Jets offense will fare and not good enough, considering what their defense is going to do to the Bills offense, in my opinion, that the Jets will get this win. So being that the Bills are favorites by 2.5, I'm taking the Jets for my prediction. So that's that. These are all the games. So I'm now going to pivot to a different stream that I'm going to get started right now. And what I'm going to do, people, is I'm going to drop the link. One second. I'm going to drop the link in the chat here for everyone to click so that they could just head there right now and we can get that going. So that's going to be Patriots Eagles. It's going to be the whole stream is just going to be about that matchup. And yeah, people, we're going to have an interesting time with that one. It probably won't be too long, but I'm going to get the link and I'm going to drop it right in the chat. So here it is, people. Is that link clickable? Let me know if you guys can click that or if that even got delivered. I don't see it in the chat yet. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. But yeah, okay, whatever. Cool. The link isn't going to cooperate right now. Actually, no, I found a different way. This should work. Cool. Yeah, that link clicks. So yeah, you guys are good to head there. I'm wrapping this stream up right now. To anybody watching this on replay, to anybody watching this live, make sure you like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel. These things really help with channels and making the videos go further on YouTube and making channels get bigger. So make sure you do that on your way out. Click that link right there. It'll take you right to that next stream. We'll unpack the game that I'm looking forward to the most as an Eagles fan. So I'll catch you guys around.